My mother and sister were organizing Grandpa's 90th birthday celebration. My husband leaned closer and murmured, "Grab your bag. We are leaving. Act as if nothing is amiss." I assumed he was exaggerating until he secured the car doors and stated, "Something is indeed very, very wrong." 5 minutes later, I contacted the police. I had not seen the majority of these individuals in 5 years, and some for an even longer duration. A few I was fairly certain I had never encountered before. Someone offered me a plastic flute filled with champagne. A child dashed past, clutching a paper plate as if it were a steering wheel. There were folding chairs, paper lanterns, and polite music emanating from someone's Bluetooth speaker. All the elements of a relaxed outdoor gathering were present. It was festive, albeit slightly awkward. It should have been a pleasant experience, and for the initial hour or so, it was. I lingered by the table laden with finger foods, feigning interest in grape skewers. My husband, Roger, stood next to me, holding a glass of white wine and observing the crowd with that neutral, inscrutable expression he adopts when he is too courteous to express his desire to leave. My mother was in her element, embracing guests, wiping away tears, and reapplying lipstick behind a napkin. My father was seated near the grill, lamenting about the weather as if it had personally affronted him. My sister Natalie was predictably absent from my vicinity. Her husband was chuckling at something that no one else found amusing. Although it was Grandpa's house, it no longer felt like his. He had constructed it after his business thrived. It was not ostentatious, but sufficiently large that people whispered about how well he had succeeded. They all resided here now, Mom, Dad, Natalie, and her husband. I believe there was space available. We had arrived from London the previous day. For years, I had been inquiring about when we could come to visit, and the responses had consistently been ambiguous. "It's not an opportune time. He is not feeling well. Perhaps next year." Then, this spring, my mother had remarked, "If you truly wish to see him, come for his birthday." So, I accepted the invitation. I thought perhaps she was becoming more accommodating, that this held some significance. The celebration was already lively when they wheeled Grandpa out, his hair neatly styled, dressed in a sweater vest that seemed familiar to me. Everyone applauded as if he had just stepped onto a red carpet. I stood there, paralyzed. He appeared well, perhaps too well. His complexion was smooth, his gaze distant, as if he were half listening to a melody that no one else could perceive. I waved at him. He did not return the gesture. I reassured myself that it was merely a consequence of aging. My mother leaned closer and whispered, "He doesn't speak much anymore. It is challenging for him." I nodded as if I comprehended. She lifted her glass and initiated the toast, her voice trembling just enough to draw attention to herself. 90 years of wisdom, love, and generosity, she proclaimed. He built our family. He provided us with this life. Some guests wiped their eyes. A woman behind me softly uttered the word beautiful. Roger did not join in the applause. I noticed he was fixated. "Hey," I said softly, nudging him. "What's the matter?" He remained silent, continuing to observe Grandpa, or the man in the chair, I suppose, as if he were committing every wrinkle to memory. "Roger," I repeated. That was when he leaned closer and said, "Grab your bag. We are leaving. Act as if nothing is amiss." I actually chuckled. "You must be joking." He did not smile. His gaze remained fixed. "Get your bag. What are you discussing?" "Smile. Proceed inside. Pack immediately." I gazed at him. "Roger. What is happening? We have only just arrived." He slowly turned his head, finally meeting my gaze. "Something is profoundly wrong." It was not merely his words, it was the calmness with which he spoke. As if it were an undeniable truth, like the force of gravity. My hands became icy. I glanced back at Grandpa. He remained still. His hands rested on the armrest as if they were mere props. "Are you serious?" I inquired. Roger did not respond. He was already making his way toward the house. I followed him upstairs. I struggled with the zipper on my overnight bag. My heart was pounding. My mouth felt parched. I kept thinking, if he is mistaken, this will be incredibly embarrassing. If he is correct, we exited through the front door. No one intervened. No one even glanced our way. At the car, Roger opened the passenger door for me as if he were a gentleman in a spy film. We both entered. He secured the doors. Then he grasped the steering wheel and stated, "That is not your grandfather." I used to believe that perhaps I was imagining the difference, the way events unfolded for me compared to my sister. Perhaps I was simply sensitive. Perhaps I was being dramatic. Perhaps I merely enjoyed finding reasons to feel excluded. That is what I convinced myself for years until the day Natalie turned 18 and the entire household behaved as though she were embarking on the Titanic. She stood at the front door with her duffel bag and a full tuition scholarship. And my mother was weeping as if someone had passed away. "You do not have to leave," she repeatedly said. "We will manage. Please, just stay a little longer." 2 years prior, upon reaching the age of 18, I received a suitcase and a nod. "It is time to mature," my father stated. "You are now an adult. Go and create your own life." There were no embraces, no tears, and no offers of assistance with packing. I do not wish to come across as resentful. Truly, I do not. I moved out, attended college, and continued with my life. However, there is something disheartening about being sent off like a courteous guest while your sister is implored to remain. That sentiment lingers. Ironically, I had no choice regarding college. I understood that I had to attend, not because anyone insisted, but because I required a reason to depart. My parents did not contribute financially. I doubt they even inquired about my field of study. It was my grandfather who provided support in silence. He would send me money every few months, just sufficient to manage. For rent, groceries, and the occasional emergency. No commotion, no admonitions, merely a folded check accompanied by a note in his unsteady handwriting. "Hope this assists. Proud of you." He was not obligated to do that, yet he chose to. I recall him from the very start. Even before I could form complete sentences, my grandfather was there. He would lift me up and share stories in a voice that always seemed to harbor secrets. He crafted toys from wood and taught me how to use a hand plane while I was still wearing Velcro sneakers. He had the scent of cedar and peppermint tea. At that time, it felt as though he belonged to me, as if I were his favorite. Perhaps I was. However, life has a way of separating individuals. College transitioned into a career. A career evolved into Roger. And just like that, we found ourselves residing in London. It was not a dramatic escape. It was a matter of opportunity, employment, timing, and perhaps, if I am honest, a sense of relief. Being distant made everything seem simpler. Simpler to overlook how infrequently my parents reached out. Simpler to feign that the silence was merely due to time zone differences. Simpler to ignore the peculiar emptiness that always accompanied any conversation with Natalie. Regardless of how amicable it appeared, we maintained contact. In a manner. Holiday emails, the occasional Zoom call. The last genuine conversation I had with Grandpa occurred during one of those video chats. He appeared older, yet still sharp. He inquired about my work. I asked about his garden. He made a jest about the squirrels pilfering all his tomatoes. That was 3 years ago. Following that, communication dwindled. I had requested to speak with him, and my mother would respond that he was sleeping, unwell, or too fatigued. Eventually, she ceased responding altogether. I reassured myself that it was normal. People age, they become withdrawn. Perhaps it was challenging for him to converse. Yet, something about it never felt right. Thus, I refrained from pressing the issue. I had a life, a career, a husband. I convinced myself it was not personal, that I had not been excluded, merely gently and politely left behind. Then, out of the blue, there was the birthday invitation, or rather the permission. If you truly wish to see him, Mom had stated over the phone. Come for his 90th. I did not hesitate. I booked the flights that very night. I believed it signified something. I thought perhaps this was the moment of change, that maybe I was being allowed back in. Instead, I entered a gathering where I was unfamiliar with everyone, stood on grass that felt foreign, and came to the realization that at some point, this entire place ceased to belong to me, if it ever truly did. They all resided here now. Mom, Dad, Natalie, and her husband. They had integrated the house as if it were a natural extension of their intimacy, their genuine family. I was merely an outsider visiting. I kept convincing myself it was merely a figment of my imagination, that I was projecting my feelings, that I was being overly dramatic once more. However, when Roger leaned in and instructed, "Get your bag," everything felt undeniably real. We sat in the car as if we had just committed a crime. Or perhaps as if we had just escaped one. I couldn't discern the difference at that moment. Roger was gripping the steering wheel as if he anticipated it to retaliate against him. His knuckles were pale. I remained frozen, halfway through fastening my seatbelt, as if not clicking it completely would render everything unreal. What do you mean it's not him? He did not meet my gaze. I mean, it's not your grandfather. What are you talking about? I'm serious, he stated. Calmly, yet without kindness. That man in the wheelchair, that's not him. I looked at him as if he had claimed the cake was made of uranium. You think someone put on a mask? Like some villain from Scooby-Doo? Not a mask. His ears are different. I blinked. His ears. Roger finally turned to face me. You don't understand. I recall faces. Every detail has been etched in my memory since childhood. I can draw a person I encountered once at a train station in 2009. I do not forget faces or ears. That is not your grandfather. In an instant, my stomach felt like water. I wanted to laugh. Not the haha type. The kind that unravels, high-pitched, like slipping off a cliff. I pressed my hand against my face. My mind attempted to reason through it. But what else could it possibly be? Who else could it be? Roger glanced back at the house. Your uncle? What? Didn't you mention he resembled your grandfather significantly when he was younger? I did. I had. He did. But that was many years ago. Moreover, my uncle was not present, was he? He had not attended the party. Hadn't uttered a word. Additionally, oh my God, I whispered. He was wearing glasses and had a beard. Likely makeup. The internet reacted as it typically does. It laughed, then speculated, and ultimately tore us all apart. I refrained from reading the comments. Not after the initial 20. Evidently, I was labeled everything from an accomplice to a narcissist, and even an ungrateful brat who should have simply allowed her family to manage in tranquility. People had their opinions. People always do. Then, I received a call from the lawyer. Not their lawyer, but his grandfather's. Victoria, I have been attempting to contact you for quite some time. I almost hung up. Your grandfather has bequeathed his estate to you, including the house, the business assets, the remainder of the trust, everything. I found myself staring at the floor, fixated on the annoying grout line in the kitchen tile that never quite aligns. My throat became parched. This was not a secret, he added softly. He informed your mother and your sister years ago. Suddenly, everything fell into place. The deceit, the concealment, the phony gatherings, the man in the wheelchair. They had not merely been concealing his death, they had been hiding it from me because if he were deceased, the estate would belong to me. And if I remained unaware, they could continue residing in his house, utilizing his funds, and pretending I did not exist. I called my mother. I was uncertain about what I desired. Perhaps answers. She answered on the second ring. How dare you? Her voice trembled with anger. Not sorrow, not shame, but rage. You reported your own family to the police. You brought humiliation upon us. You have no comprehension of what you have done. I attempted to respond, but she interrupted me. You were not present. You do not understand what it was like. You abandoned us. You gave up on this family, and now you swoop in and behave as if you are some sort of hero. Where is he? I interjected. Silence. What happened to him? What did you do with his body? You do not have the right to inquire about that, she replied coldly. You were not there. I inquired every year, I stated. You deceived me. Each time we were safeguarding him, safeguarding you. He did not wish for a grand spectacle to be made of his death. He desired peace. I laughed. An actual laugh. It emerged cracked and bitter, like something shattered under pressure. You did not protect him. You plundered him. That was the moment she ended the call. Weeks went by. The investigation progressed at a slow pace, then accelerated. There were testimonies, interviews, and subpoenas. Ultimately, the coroner validated what my family had asserted. Natural causes. My grandfather passed away peacefully in his sleep. No signs of trauma, no poisoning, no violence, just the quiet conclusion of an elderly man's life. I wept for the first time since the police's visit because at last, I could grieve for him without any uncertainty. However, the issues of fraud, impersonation, and financial misconduct remained. Charges were brought forth for failing to report a death, withholding information, illegally accessing funds, and identity deception. They did not receive prison sentences. Instead, they were given probation. Conditional, monitored, and sternly communicated. If they faltered again, they would be sent directly to jail. My uncle, the actor, faced his own legal troubles, but he chose to cooperate. This appeared to be beneficial. He received probation like the others. As for me, I inherited the house, the entire property, and the assets. It was not excessively lavish. Not at a billionaire's level, but it was substantial enough to clarify why they had maintained their deception for so long. I did not evict them, the courts did. They vacated in silence. No apologies, no eye contact. My mother left a note on the kitchen counter. It read, "You always excelled at taking what you did not earn." I burned it in the sink. On the first night I spent there alone, just visiting before returning to London, I sat in Grandpa's chair. I uncorked a bottle of wine and rested my feet on the table. The atmosphere was tranquil, still carrying the scent of wood polish. I did not feel triumphant, vindicated, or even angry anymore. I felt overlooked. And for the first time in my life, I did not feel like an outsider. I have not communicated with my parents or my sister since then. Not even a text message. At times, I ponder whether I went too far. Other times, I question if I did not go far enough. Please share your thoughts. And if you desire more narratives like this, please subscribe and activate the notification bell.